This is an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File Program with Peter Anthony Holder.
Lamont Dozier, one-third of one of the most prolific musical writing teams of all time, has died at the age of 81. He, along with Brian and Eddie Holland, became the Motown hit-making machine that was Holland-Dozier-Holland. Back in 2004, I had the pleasure and honor of spending an hour talking to Lamont. At the time, he was releasing an album called Reflections, which had many of the hit songs he co-wrote, but in a slowed-down tempo. It was a chance to take him back down memory lane and talk about working with the Detroit Hit Factory during the halcyon days of Motown. Here is part of that conversation now. You've come up with this album, Reflections of, which take the songs that you've written over the years, but gives them a different twist, makes them almost ballads.
Yeah.
How did you come up with the idea to do this?
Well, actually, the songs, most of the songs, it's a technique, you might say, of writing. When I first started writing these songs originally, they all started out slow. They started. And that was the reason to get the feeling of what I was trying to say, or trying to get the musicians to understand the chords and the feeling that I was going for. And once we rehearsed the songs in a slow mood, or slower tempo, I should say, then we would speed up the tempo and cut the songs like we were initially had planned. But most of the time when I'm at the piano, I always start off a song slow. And so I thought that maybe this would be an interesting way to do in this day of Botox and what have you. I figured that maybe these songs could stand a new arrangement of sorts. So I started to think. I said, wait a minute. I started these things off slow. Why don't I do them slow with a romantic feel? And that's how we came up with it.
I got to tell you, the album is great.
Thank you.
But you've got to listen to it more than once, because
yeah.
The first, I got the album, I'm listening to it, I pop it in the car, and I'm ready to sing along with everything, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, it's not quite what I expected.
Right, exactly.
And then when you sit down and listen to it the second time, you realize just how lush, like you say, these songs really are.
Right, and you get a chance to hear the lyrics. A lot of people say they're hearing the lyrics for the first time. A lot of people didn't hear them for whatever reason, but they get a more of an essence of what the lyric was about.
Now, you mentioned that you wrote these initially in a slower tempo, and then it was speeded up when the song was produced initially.
Right.
Was there ever a time when you were writing these songs and you would play them with the musicians and you would figure out how to make it better, that you decided maybe the tempo doesn't need to be speeded up? Did some tunes stay ballads?
Yeah, like I Hear Symphony. They were basically, we sort of like double beat, or have a double time drum beat behind in the background, but actually it was a very somber type of song, like Reflections too, one of the songs that the Supremes had number one hit on. That was a slower tempo. We used to call it rocker ballads. You remember that?
Right.
In those days. In that particular time, we call them rocker ballads, the ones that were slower tempo-wise,
Now, what was the process for you when you were writing? Did you think when you were sitting down in that Motown factory so many years ago with your writing collaborators that you were writing a song for the Temptations or a song for the Supremes, or did you just write a song and then the group that or individual that would best suit it became a fit later on?
That's right, the latter. Yeah. We would sit down and just write a song and start and write what we would be doodling, either I at the piano or Brian at the piano, and we would sit sometimes side by side to try to come up with something. When we had a project, when we had to come up with something for another record or something that substantial for Berry Gordy to listen to, we would actually would sit and play things over and over and over till something clicked. And he and I would decide that which songs would be appropriate for the Supremes or the Four Top or whoever we were trying to get a song for at that particular time.
When it comes to songwriters, and not only were the songs you guys wrote very, very popular, but a lot of people, I mean, I was a kid when these songs came out, and I knew Holland-Dozier-Holland. I might not know you guys' first names, but I always knew a Holland-Dozier-Holland song.
Right.
You guys were well known for songwriters, almost as, I would guess, almost as big back then as Bacharach and David.
Yeah, once we started having I would say the 13 number one songs on the Supremes, that opened up a door for us as celebrity or stars in our own right, as songwriter producers around the world. And in England especially, we were just as popular as the artists themselves that sung the songs.
It's funny you mentioned England, because recently in the last couple of years, with Standing in the Shadows, the documentary on the Funk Brothers,
right?
They too mentioned the fact that in England, people seem to know who they were.
Right.
More so than in North America. It seems here in North America we were more concerned with the artist and not the people who put the music together. Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I think, I often thought about that. A friend of mine, when I often went to England a lot, and Pete Waterman of Stock Aitken Waterman, he thought it was because people are more curious about where the song comes from, who created the song. They're more likely to want to know what the songwriter or the person, the creative force behind it, was thinking at the time when they came up with the song. They want to research the songs that they love and that they dance to, and want more information. They want the story behind the song more so than the people in North America.
At one point in our chat back in 2004, after playing his slowed-down version of Where Did Our Love Go?, I got to ask Lamont about the songs of unrequited love that he often wrote about.
I grew up listening to that song, the original version, the faster version, sung along every chance I heard. But when I hear it's coming from you, that's one tortured soul. and when you sit down and think about most of the songs that you wrote, that's one tortured soul. A lot of the songs you wrote dealt with a love that just didn't work. Were you writing about anybody in particular?
Yeah, well, there was one girl that was a big inspiration in my life as far as the songs I had written or ideas that I came up with during the 60s. There was one girl called Bernadette, and she was my first childhood sweetheart.
Is that the same Bernadette that the Four Tops sang about?
Exactly. She was the one. And I came up with a lot of ideas and wrote a lot of songs about her. It was a love that was it was unrequited love, and it wasn't returned. She didn't know I existed, and she did like my best friend, and not me, but she never knew that I had these feelings for her.
No, we've all been there.
Yeah. But I thank her now because she was the inspiration for a lot of hit songs.
Did she ever know this? Did she ever find this out?
Absolutely not. She never knew. And I didn't. I didn't tell her. No one told her. I guess because I didn't tell anybody else about it.
Well, now the secret's out. Is she still out there somewhere?
Oh gosh, she's out there somewhere. But the last time I saw her, she had a bunch of babies walking down the street in a stroller, one in her arm, one in the stroller, and I saw her on Woodward Avenue in Detroit in the late '60s or early '70s. And it was like a shocker to see all these children that she was obviously married and had a family, and so I just didn't think that would be appropriate to tell her.
You went to Motown in 1962. You signed as an artist, producer, and songwriter. How did you hook up with Brian and Eddie Holland?
Well, Brian and Eddie Holland were already there. Brian had. He was working with a guy named Robert Bateman, and together they produced a song called Please Mr. Postman by the Marvelettes. When I got there in '62, actually I came from another company of the Gordy family, Anna Records, which was Gwen Gordy, Berry Gordy's sister, who he wrote a lot of the songs for Jackie Wilson with. I was with her label for about 2 years, and then after her label folded, I came to Motown, and he wanted to talk to me about coming over, and because I was thinking about going to New York and try my hand there, and he convinced me to come there, which I did. I'm glad I did, of course. We talked about my career because I wanted to sing and revisit my career, but he persuaded me because he needed artists, he needed songs for the artists and producers more so than another artist. He sort of persuaded me to put my singing career on the back burner, which I did.
Was that a difficult choice for you to make, or?
Well, you know, he was saying, he put it in such a way, you really want to be successful at this because there's a lot of people that sing here, and not that he thought I couldn't sing or wasn't as good as the rest of the people. He just thought that I would be more successful being a songwriter-producer because there was a lot of people there that I could get songs out on. So I took him up on that. And while I was there, I met Brian Holland, and he and I sort of just hit it off on a song called "Forever." It was a song that I did on one of the B-sides for Marvin Gaye, and that's how we began. And then later on, as the work progressed, and I got really busy. Brian doesn't write lyric, but I wrote lyric and music. But I kind of got bogged down with trying to write a lot of songs at one time, and Eddie suggested, talking to his brother, Brian, of course, that he could come in as a lyricist. He thought he could do the job, take up the slack, and we can get more songs done and more songs recorded and out. And so we became Holland-Dozier-Holland, a factory within a factory, you might say.
And Motown was quite the factory, lightning in a bottle. I guess it's the right time at the right place.
That's right.
For all those elements to come together. We look back at it now and think of the volume of great music that came out of Motown back then.
Yeah.
Did you realize it at the time, or is it something you had to look back and, you know, like your album says, reflections of?
Yeah. No, nobody really knew. I mean, it was just a bigger surprise to us as it was Barry and the rest of the people there. How big this thing got. You know, it just got blown all out of proportion. And one day we had people coming from England and the Bob Dylans, the Beatles, and Rolling Stones, you name it. Everybody was crowding into this little building to check this place out to see what did we have there that was creating such a buzz around the world. And they were all surprised when they seen this little house and this little tiny studio, that this is where the sound was coming out of. You know, it was quite surprising to a lot of people.
Now, the first number one you had, I guess, would have been "Where Our Love Goes." Is that correct?
The first number one. That's right. Yeah. That's the first of 13 number ones on a roll from the Supremes. Yeah.
When you first heard that on the radio, as it started to climb the charts, and when a song is number one, you can't get away from it. It is everywhere. What was it like when you realized the smash hit that song had become?
Oh God, that is a feeling that's hard to describe. It's sort of, I know people use the word surreal, but if this is anything like it, this had to be that. I mean, I was feeling light on my feet and just kind of dizzy. Like, I mean, when you have something so huge to have the number one song, you wind up pinching yourself all day long and trying to figure out what did I do right. You know, at first the Supremes hated this song; they didn't want it, and we had to convince them to do the thing. And the attitude that they brought to the studio, because of not liking the song and not wanting to do it, was just what the song needed. The attitude was just what it needed to take it all the way to number one.
What kind of arguments do you have to make to convince an artist to do the song that they don't want to do?
Well, we tell them, first of all, look, you girls are at the bottom of the totem pole, and you can't afford to turn down anything. That was the argument that we approached them with, and also they knew that they couldn't afford to turn down anything. We had a song, When the Love Light Starts Shining in His Eyes, previously to the big hit Where Did Our Love Go, which was a top 20. But the Marvelettes was scheduled to do this song, Where Did Our Love Go, but they turned it down. You know, they had the big hits on Please Mr. Postman and Playboy. And so they felt that they didn't have to take stuff that they didn't like. And so they turned it down, and we had already cut the track. So I felt like, I had to really get somebody to do this track because the policy is if you record something and don't finish it, then you're responsible for the cost of that particular track. So that's how the Supremes wind up getting that track, because they were low on the artist roster, and they were called the No Hit Supremes, and so we figured that they would be the most probably the only group that wouldn't give us any lip about doing the song.
Did you, after it went to number one, did you get to go back to the Marvelettes and say, I told you so?
Oh, no, we didn't do that. But the Supremes forgot all about, conveniently forgot that they hated the song when they had sold 3 or 4 million copies.
That was just a portion of the hour I spent talking to Lamont Dozier. He died in Arizona on August the 8th at the age of 81. He was a music writing genius, and his album Reflections is one of my prized possessions. We played 3 tracks of it in that hour, and Patreon Stuph File Program subscribers can hear the entire hour, songs and all, as a Patreon reward extra. Just go to our Patreon page, and if you're not already a member, become one of the select patrons of the show. Visit patreon.com/The Stuph File Program.
You've just heard an exclusive excerpt from the Stuph File Program with Peter Anthony Holder. To hear any or all of the full hour-long shows, visit thestufffile.com. Stuph is spelled S-T-U-P-H. That's thestufffile.com. A presentation of Flying Fish Communications.